Salutations everyone! Shadowlands has recently come out, and many of us are already at max level doing our campaigns and doing our Torghast runs. And if you've gotten far enough, you've likely encountered this fella here, who's offered to craft you some legendaries if you help him out with his memory problem. Now, there's also suspicion on this character, and already many within the community have deduced who he might be and why he's currently like this. So, of course, spoilers are on the way, potentially on the Runecarver and who he might be. You've been warned. So, on to the video then. Alright, so the hot theory in everyone's mind is that the Primus is the true name and face of the Runecarver, but because of the jailer, he's forgotten all about that and has been forced into making powerful weapons and armor for him. And in case you're lost in who the Primus is, I'll explain that too. The Primus, as explained in Maldraxxus, was the eternal one of that realm, much like the Winter Queen for Ardenweald and Denathrius for Revendreth, and so on. Basically, the god of that realm. He was a master of war and one of the most long-thinking out of the entire Eternal Ones, and went missing at some point, and has yet to return. Already that is enough to somewhat link the two, as it adds up that the Primus would predict that one day Zaval would escape, so he left one of his runeblades behind in Maldraxxus to warn his realm and the other realms within the Shadowlands, should that come to pass. I imagine he went to investigate into the Maw, and was imprisoned there in the very prison Zaval once resided in. He was then forced to do the jailer's bidding, eventually forgetting who he was and why he was here, besides his hatred for Zaval. The Primus was a legend at making swords too, and lo and behold, the Runecarver was the one responsible for making both Frostmourne and the Helm of Domination. It's important to remember that the Scourge on Azeroth is actually an imitation of the construct and beings from Maldraxxus. Arthas and Kel'Thuzad even drew power from Maldraxxus quite a lot during their reign back on Azeroth. So it makes sense that the Primus, the master of that realm, could design two powerful artifacts linked to that realm extremely. They also share the same voice actor in several different countries, and while Blizzard does tend to reuse their voice actors, it is a little suspicious for these two to share the same one multiple times. Even their skulls line up slightly. I'd imagine the Runecarver, as he is right now, is wearing a mask that is meant to hinder his abilities and memories, as it's quite clearly a restraint connected to the chains all around him. But that's just my take on that whole deal. This could just be how the Primus looks, colored like the jailer, and without his horns, as statues can always be an exaggeration of how characters actually look. All in all, the pieces seem to fit really well together. The Primus went missing, and then this Runecarver guy has little to no recollection and has been used to create mass murder weapons that the Primus was capable of creating. And the only memory that the Carver was able to retain was his hatred for Zaval, which seems to definitely be personal for the two. I mean, what would Zaval do with one of the most intelligent of the Eternal Ones? You take away that well-thought mind and use those very memories against all who'd oppose you. There are a few bumps on this theory, and it may or may not be enough to break it. For starters, the Primus and the Runecarver don't have the same amount of fingers. It's a very small nitpick, as I could honestly just chop that to him being mutated in the Maw/Torghast, or merely he added another finger at some point. He is, after all, from Maldraxxus, and those guys do tend to change their bodies up quite a bit, if it benefits them. To what an extra finger might do, I don't know, and I don't want to get demonetized by guessing. Secondly, it has been stated by Blizzard, I believe, that the Runecarver learned of the Primus's teachings somehow, and the jailer has been using those teachings to help his cause. Obviously, Blizzard's word is law on this, however, a similar claim was made when it came to who burned Teldrassil, and Sylvanas, being the perpetrator, was waived at being false, until unveiled during the expansion. This could just be something that they legally cannot say, or something. Thirdly, Frostmourne and the Helm of Domination were made long before Vash's death. It seems like to some degree Vosh knew or met or had an idea of what the Primus was like. If that's the case and she met him, then that would mean that he couldn't possibly be the Primus. If we follow the timeline that the Primus went missing, was captured by Zaval, and then forced to make the artifacts of domination, then Vosh couldn't have met him, as she herself once tried to end the Lich King and fought against Arthas and his forces. This, I think you could just chalk up to Vosh never meeting the Primus and only knowing him through others. Meanwhile, Draka meeting him or knowing of him adds up, since the Scourge and the Lich King weren't a thing till after her demise, approximately right after the Second War. If the Runecarver isn't the Primus, I would jump to the conclusion then that he was either created from the Primus, taught by the Primus, or, as Blizzard said, merely knew his teaching somehow. But if I was to go anywhere with this, I would make the Runecarver and the Primus the same being. Just because it's the most obvious doesn't mean it's a bad story. I'd say it's actually rewarding to us players when we connect the dots and we can all say, we knew it! And this is what the legendary questline in Shadowlands could lead to at some point. After breaking his chains, you and the Carver venture out from Torghast and the Maw. Eventually, he recovers a good chunk of his memories, perhaps stored in the Runeblade in Maldraxxus. And he reveals himself as the Primus and takes back his seat as the ruler of Maldraxxus once more. It also makes sense for the Carver/Primus to help fix the Shattered Helm of Domination in order to fix that giant crack in our sky. I fully suspect at some point for the helm to be fixed, and somebody to don it once again, at least by the end of the expansion. Of course, this also retains the question, how the heck did the Legion get their hands on these artifacts? I'm really hoping we get to learn just how that might have happened. Was it intentional by the jailer to deliver it in the hands of the Legion, or did the Runecarver manage it to thwart the jailer's original plans? Man, I'm just really keen in figuring out what that's all about. But what do you guys think? Do you think the Runecarver is the Primus or someone else? Let me know what you all think down below. You can follow me on Twitter to hear me shitpost or talk about my opinions a lot if you'd like. You can join us on Discord to talk about all sorts of things. Or if you really want to, you can go follow me on Twitch, where I'm not very active, but I'll try to do things on there when I have free time. Also, if you like these videos, you can support me on Patreon like these amazing folks here. But until next time, my friends, see ya!